Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you. It's been a couple weeks, Ragnar. It feels like it's been a couple weeks.
It's really strange. You're waiting a month for MVP Summit, and then it's over, and we say, oh, that was too fast. It rushed away. Yeah.
It's so sad that you couldn't have been there, Joy. I know that there were quite a few people that had active projects and couldn't take the time away, and but so many faces that are usually there that weren't there, but it was great to see a lot of the newbies and interact with Microsoft and all that fun stuff.
But you've been with us traveling in our hearts and traveling on our laptops.
Oh, yay. I've got my sticker here. I need to actually order some conference season is upon us.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And folks, if you're not sure, like we have stickers for the show and a bunch of other things. Like I've got a box over there. I brought a few, and I gave all of the ones I had to Ragnar. I only gave you 3 or 4 of those that I forgot to bring a stack with me, but I'm sure I'll see you again a couple times this year, but I'll print out more of those. But folks, well, welcome to Guardians of M365 Governance, episode 16.
Ooh.
And this series is a monthly webcast focused on the rapidly evolving and expanding Microsoft 365 governance story. So there's always features. In fact, last night, I was looking up the status of some items on the roadmap and saw some other governance related features that are out there across different products. So our goal here is to share insights, best practices, and the latest information about new governance features and capabilities within Microsoft 365. So we are dedicated to everything governance within M365 ecosystem. So if you have questions or comments or thoughts of what should we cover or guess what we should have on the show, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please comment. And for this 16th episode, we welcome a technical consultant, an architect, Microsoft 365 evangelist from South Africa. He is a good friend and a dual Microsoft MVP. So fancy with the dual situation. He's don't give him any praise or anything. We don't need his head to be any bigger. But both in security and M365, Mr. Alistair Pugin. And there we go. Alistair, hello.
Yes.
Hey.
Where's Muse? I need the intro music, Buckley.
Yeah.
I need some plug-in, baby.
Do you have your own, like baseball players have the song that kind of gets them in the zone? What would your intro song be?
Well, Buckley decided that my intro song should be Plug-in Baby because my surname's Pugin and nobody can pronounce it. And it's a Muse track and it's just sort of stuck, right? But I don't have one.
Except then it would the video would be blocked for most of the countries in the world for music rights.
I do a show with Nicholas Blank, who's also an MVP, and typically he would announce me. Right? He would announce me. You would go, the great Pugini, and then I'd show up.
That's Italian,
how it used to work, right? And he's the Daniel Craig of IT because he runs through drywalls. But that's typically, on our preventative maintenance series that we do once a month. That's how we introduce each other. But it's great to be here. I've seen Buckley and Ragnar at Summit. Joy, we haven't met in person, but we'll remedy that this year. And I'm looking forward to having a conversation about data security and all the AI bits and pieces that have now shown up everywhere.
Well, maybe let's kick off the discussion here. I mean, I know we got limited time here, but talking specifically about the role that AI is playing in Microsoft 365 governance. So again, I know there's a lot of features that are coming up. But when you think about from a governance standpoint, how are you leveraging AI? How are you talking with clients today about leveraging AI in a lot of that work?
So it started, about 18 months ago when Microsoft made the announcement, OpenAI said, yes, ChatGPT, and the world lost their minds, right? Yeah. And everyone they literally lost their minds, right? And it was at its infancy, and then we saw the accelerated growth over the last 18 months with Satya saying, Moore's law's gone, technology doubles every 6 months, right? That's what we're working with, and the Medora and the quantum qubit, quantum mechanics stuff. Customers are starting to use they talk consumer and then they talk commercial, right? And that's how we typically split AI. Consumer AI, hey Siri, and everything else, right? That we're seeing, schedule my travel, and then commercials, the stuff that we look at as Microsoft 365 people, right? Copilot and agents. When is a copilot an agent, and when is an agent a copilot? That's the thing we need to solve, right, for Microsoft product market, because it's ruined it. We're starting to see, we had that trough of disillusionment, the queries, right? And that's now come out on the other side, where customers are saying, we've bought this $30 per user license, and we kind of get it. Summarize stuff in Word, summarize my inbox, Outlook, create a presentation from a PDF, and do Python and Excel. We've gone through that, and everyone's now learning how to become a really good prompt engineer. But rubber hits the road is pretty much the same way we looked at shadow IT. What's happening on your desktop? What are you doing external to what we give you? And that's now filtered into what's happening inside of AI, the GPTs of the world. There's even an AI called Harvey, which is built for law firms, right? Suits Harvey Specter. And we deal with law firms in South Africa, and they allow Copilot and Harvey. Those are the two only platforms that they allow inside of the organization. But a lot of customers manage the desktop, but they don't manage what happens on the desktop. So here's a desktop, you have a compliant device, and you can browse, and the traditional stuff to block at a firewall. They now do block porn, and we block all the weird and wonderful other things, music and things like that. But they don't necessarily block Perplexity, ChatGPT, X with Grok, and all the other, AI wrapped applications that have been released over the last 18 months. And I think Microsoft's done quite a bit in providing customers now with the facility to manage, administer, maintain, and understand what organizations are actually doing with AI, like a file and saying, summarize this document, or those sorts of things, or write a document from a 74-page PDF, because that's what everyone's doing. We don't have access to Copilot, but we do have, we can go to ChatGPT because we've got our family use it, so we're going to try it in exactly the same way. So it's an interesting time for the world when it comes to managing how you interact with artificial intelligence through a web browser, or even a thick client deployed to your desktop like Perplexity.
I know that one of the concerns from a governance standpoint is that, I was just talking about this yesterday with someone about going into doing training, Copilot readiness. One of the ways that you always start the conversation, I talk about, the usage, the ethical usage of AI in the business setting, the restrictions there, things that you need to be aware of. A lot of the story, one of the things I loved about Copilot readiness and being focused on the governance space is that it's pretty much all the same governance things that we've been telling you to do. I've been out there advocating for the last 20 plus years around your information architecture, your content cleanup. Those are the same steps for that. But a key difference is understanding how the AI tools, the different tools that you're using, the consumer and the private, the more secure like Copilot solutions, how they work, so that you understand, am I going out and is this something that I would do like a Google search for? I'd go out just broad internet. There's nothing private. There's nothing, personally identifiable or, that is intellectual property for my company, that I could just go out and use ChatGPT for, or, through formerly known as the Bing search engine, but, so with a Copilot front end like that. But the free tools that are out there versus, I'm not putting our IP out in the system. I'm going to go do this behind the firewall. I want the abilities of AI, but I want it to be secured. People need to understand the differences between those. Am I collaborating in the right place? So
are you asking me to respond because there's four of us on this?
This is a show where we talk, so you could,
because I will talk until you hit the, you hit the end recording button. So I'm really just giving Ragnar and Joy an opportunity to respond to Buckley's musings. Yeah.
Well,
but I'll happily respond, right?
It is interesting. It's like that phrase, everything old is new again. We have worked and talked so much about governance, to your point, Christian, for 20 plus years. Only 18 for me, so I'm kind of the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
But it's still relevant. It's still valid. But, and Alistair, Ragnar, you probably have similar opinions. Now it's like people are finally actually paying attention to it because the stakes are so much higher than they've ever been before, with the power of AI at the fingertips of, actually not anyone that has a license, because you could go rogue, Christian, out to ChatGPT or
as we all do. Yes,
it happens, but maybe it should happen responsibly, because we've learned about the governance of when to use what.
Yeah, that's exactly new. So what I'm currently observing is on the customer side that I have daily conversations about classic topics like Teams, SharePoint governance, but also new conversations like governance for Copilot Studio, agent governance. Now, maybe also deeper into identity governance. That's a topic where I would like to learn more from Alistair. So in general, more conversations where customers are coming to us, and then also the new things like agent governance, because the customers definitely understand the value of agents. So that's something what we can explain easily, and the value proposition is very easy to understand around agents. But currently, they need more guardrails, more left and right guardrails. Especially the company doesn't want to roll out all agents to everybody. So we're missing a kind of roles and groups and permissions of agents, because yes, the agents are going to be deployed to everybody in the company. That's something what most customers don't accept.
One of my favorite comments that a number of MVPs brought it up at Summit as well, but it's been out on the internet, so there's nothing NDA about it, but is the wish for Microsoft to create an agent for agents. So, which
agents to roll them all.
I'm using prompts to create prompts.
Well, you kind of do that. I mean, you go. That's actually something I use all the time. Is, hey, help me create the right prompt to do this, or to then make modifications and this, and it goes back and it refactors the prompt so that you have a complete, the right ask for that. But that's one way of doing that. The other side of it is I mean, I want an honest question. Maybe Alistair, you can answer first, but I mean, I think that the other discussion that we started to have around Power Platform was the importance of having a center of excellence, a COE approach to this. And so I started to right away, I saw again from the governance perspective with Copilot, we need to have that COE approach. You need to be aware of what people are building, what's their purpose, what's the intent of this. Can it be scaled? Can it be managed? Is this the right thing? Is there a better way of doing that? You have to have that discussion. And so a COE is one way of doing that before you're automated, at least you're manually talking. I know what's been your approach there?
COEs and communities of practice and, cloud centers of excellence, CCOEs. The bigger orgs typically have humans to fulfill these roles. But traditionally, and even in the bigger orgs, it doesn't matter if you're 500 users or 555,000 users, and there's a bunch of MVPs that manage these, 100,000 user plus organizations. When it comes to something like Copilot, they just switch it on, right? Microsoft loves it because you're buying 100,000 $30 per user per month Copilot licenses, and you committing to pay for that upfront for a year, right? Or at least pay monthly, but it's an annual commit, right? So Microsoft loves that. They've got to pay for tokenization. Information architecture, yes, it's lovely sitting back and watching people come back to you say, can you please come do this? Well, I spoke to you in 2007 about this. You never listened, and now you want it.
It's the Delve experience all over again. We're seeing things that we shouldn't be seeing. It's Yeah.
Karma is
Hashtag
great.
I told you so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's a great way to start the conversations. I told you so. Start there.
Beetle, I told you
There's
so.
actually a way of saying that where you don't sound condescending, where they say, there is a way. I read it about a week ago. So when we look at governance and compliance for deploying artificial intelligence inside of your organization, I suppose that's the question, right? One, the traditional co-pilot stuff that you get, before we start talking about agents or, anything that, because PVA, Power Virtual Agents, is now Copilot Studio, right? So RPA, they're no longer calling it RPA, they're calling it BOAT, Business Orchestration and Automation Technologies. Now, before we get into the agentic side, right, which is really where the rubber hits the road, that's the excitement side. The stuff that we're seeing with generative AI type, we're teaching people how to write good prompts, or we're using the prompt coach inside of the prompt coach agent inside of Microsoft 365 to help us write a prompt. And if you become a really good prompt engineer, what you're getting out of the platform is great. With Microsoft introducing agents, all of a sudden, from a governance perspective, what are we doing? We're allowing people to build agents. Are we doing that? Because you can go into SharePoint, hit a document library and say, create an agent, add that source's knowledge, and then do some things around actions and triggers. And we're not going to drill down into, that sort of functionality. And as Microsoft launches something, the rest of the AI world says, well, here's some new stuff like model context protocols, right? Which is the service bus for agents, which is very exciting, right? And that's, new and sparkly, and, everyone's creating service buses for agents. So, give you a perfect example. I work with a company called Zilio, and they've got a platform called Cortex. And Zilio does complex migrations. You go from OpenText LiveLink /content server or Documentum, Alfresco, pick a legacy enterprise content management platform. They've got the connector framework into it, and we connect, analyze, transform, and we stick it in Microsoft 365. That's what we do. That's what my business does, right? We do complex migrations from legacy ECM, my old world, circa 2001, to what I do today, Microsoft 365 information architecture, right?
This episode sponsored by Zilio. No, I'm sick.
Well, it's a tool that we use. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because they've got an AI play where they can connect the legacy system to it. So if you look at what Copilot Studio says from a knowledge perspective, and you can add all those enterprise connectors for ServiceNow or for HubSpot, and this is not sponsored by ServiceNow or HubSpot, right? You get that same functionality, right? Copilot Studio, add a data source, and now you can surface HubSpot details, and you can surface ServiceNow details. And if you do the triggers and the actions correctly, you can tabularize that response so that you get meaningful data out of an agent. Not just, hey, what's the weather today, and can you book me a flight to Seattle, right? Because that's the traditional consumer grade, and commercial grade is, summarize my inbox, and then I'm reading 10 bullet points, not 10 emails one by one, right? Well, so your time to value, reducing your time to value as humans, because there's a human factor. I can do more with less, right? And eventually it stops feeling like cheating, right? Literally stops feeling like cheating. You have to do this for about 6 months, and then you realize, well, I'm the one that's asking AI to do things for me. I didn't actually make it write this stuff for me, right? So I've gotten past that barrier now, where I no longer feel like I'm cheating.
Well, but hey, Alistair, I do want to ask though, it just made me think of a parallel. Like when I was, over 20 years ago, and I was building PMOs for companies as a consultant, would go in and build a project management organization. And what people wanted was not necessarily just the tracking of Gantt charts and work breakdown structures and the tasks and those kinds of things. They wanted the insights out of it. One of the promises of, and this is especially true with folks that are looking at governance, is being able to go in and almost like in a Star Trekian way, like, computer, tell me this, like surfacing insights out of this complex data, to be able to go in and summarize audit logs or compliance reports, explain the governance settings and why this error, this exception, you're seeing it, and it's not like to ask the computer, hey, why am I seeing these examples through? What in my logic for my policies now is not like, where do I need to go and adjust to pick up for this exception? That level of discourse with the technology, again, the promise of AI is that you can do that.
Yeah. So I think it was when And Microsoft, they've reframed everything and they're calling things data security. That now lives in Microsoft purview, right? Data security is a insider risk, data loss prevention, and information protection. They're not including data lifecycle management inside of that. We're now seeing certification, SC 401. That's the new data security cert that's been released by Microsoft, and they've now wrapped it into, you've got compliance stuff that's going to happen with retention and records management in purview and communication compliance. That's all your compliance stuff, data lifecycle management. But this data security shape, and then they've come up with a new term called data security posture management. And for those that actually go into the Purview Admin Center, the new Purview Admin Center, there's two apps snapped to the app bar on the left: data security posture management and data security posture management for AI. And I am really surprised at how fast Microsoft launched that. Literally, it's spectacular. And we're seeing stuff move into the security space. So you can now take logs from Purview and suck it into a Security Copilot and Sentinel, for threat analytics and the typical user behavior analytics, end user, the Uber stuff, right? And what we're also seeing now from Microsoft is they're giving you, like you get starter prompts in Copilot Studio when you create an agent, they're now giving you starter things inside of DSPM for AI. The recommendations tab, you can switch on a whole bunch of policies that's going to start giving you the facility. There's even I'm going to call it an agent. In the old days, you deploy an agent on a workstation, traditional infrastructure, and it sniffs stuff like Netscope does, cloud access security brokerage stuff. I have the same facility in Purview where it will live inside of Edge or Chrome. They've got an extension for Chrome, and you can deploy it via Intune. And now you can start monitoring from a shadow IT perspective what is happening with AI in your organization. Copilot interaction dashboards. There's a couple of recommendations around, dragging a sensitive document into ChatGPT. The DLP policy is going to block you from doing that. So Microsoft's come a really long way in a really short time to make sure that they lock down what organizations are actually doing with AI, not just Copilot.
Yeah.
Inside of the organization. And, we recommend customers that are starting their AI journey. I mean, we've got a law firm that we're dealing with currently. They use Harvey and Copilot. We literally said to them, okay, go to DSPM for AI, hit the reports and recommendations button and enable the policies. It runs in a testing mode, right? So you can review it to see if it works, but run it for a month so that you start understanding what your users are doing, right? Because that's the important part, irrespective of the responsible AI side. I'm not even talking about that. That's a separate conversation. But really being able to get a view into what your organization does with AI on a daily basis. Run it for a month, get your compliance person to come in and show them the dashboards and say, hey, this is what's happening. Someone's, you're using sensitive information types like dreaded disease stuff and trainable classifiers and all of those things. And you can start seeing, well, this person might have a medical condition because they searched for a dreaded disease. We flagged it and it's now in a log somewhere inside of DSPM for AI, right?
Sorry, Alistair, you lost me just for a millisecond. This report is generated in PureView or in somewhere in the Defender family? Where is it?
No, it's in Purview. So if you actually go to DSPM for AI, there's a reports tab. So there's a recommendations tab and the reports tab. There's also the overview, which gives you the configuration things, 4 things you need to do: switch on logs, deploy the agent, enroll your devices in Intune, and I can't remember what
that is in the new AI hub, or in the new PureView portal center.
They started with the AI hub, right? That's when they introduced it, and then they split it into DSPM, which is which is not the AI hub, and then DSPM for AI, which is not, the artist formerly known as the AI.
It's always moving.
Well, this makes the point. Like if there were the Copilot in Admin Center across this on the back end to help you to find those places and jump in between those and do more complex, like that's, it's almost like we're to the point where there's so much complexity on that back end. You need the help of Copilot to navigate around to all the pieces.
So you can take all your data security stuff and connect, and this is what Microsoft wants you to do, right? They want you to connect Security Copilot to this, right? Because they're going to charge you for an SCU, a security compute unit, right? And they're going to want you to buy 3 and license it for a month, and it's going to start costing you like $10,000, $20,000 a month to run this. I think it's about $10,000 to run 3 SEUs, right? And then you can literally have that agent that you want to govern your security from a data perspective, and then you can interact with that, and it will look at what's happening inside of DSPM or inside of your purview logs, right? So you can use a co-pilot, an agent, security co-pilot, to interrogate what's happening from a data security perspective. It's just going to cost you a bucket load of money, right? And you're not going to be able to build an agent to do this. You're going to need to use the out-of-the-box tools. And that's expensive. So some customers are going there. Some are saying, well, we've got the dashboards. We early on this journey. We just started on our journey to understand what the AI patterns and practices are inside of the organization. Responsible AI, irresponsible AI. Someone saying, hey, what does the CEO earn? Google search appliance debacle of 2007. Joy wasn't around then. She's still too young for that conversation, but maybe Ragnar and Buckley would know, what a Google search appliance looks like when you plugged it into a network and there was no access control list. Yep. So secretaries could find out what the CEO's earning, right? And that's the inherent problem we have today, not only with AI, but with, Copilot, well, not only with the security posture side of AI, malicious intent, insider risk, abusing, AI, pulling documents into, sort of ghost GPT or all the other weird and wonderful dark web stuff. But it's important to understand what your organization's doing with that. And you can slip that, right?
That's powerful. I had a conversation with a customer this morning, onboarding them to the Orchestrate platform. And we're talking about sharing links and oversharing, because every conversation goes to Copilot these days, right? And being AI ready. And, the importance is you can't shut down the ability to share content. You can, but if you do, there will be repercussions. When I was still consulting, we had a customer that had locked down everything. Can't share to OneDrive, can't share to SharePoint. They weren't allowed to have chat because it was a security risk. And I found out their employees were having business conversations with their customers and their vendors on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
It was easy, and everybody had Facebook. You didn't have to install anything new.
Yeah. That's it. There's a direct relationship between shadow IT and how locked down the environment is. And I mean, even having worked for companies that are like locked down, really try to enforce for external sharing, I said, but you're not answering the need that we have. We're working with customers and partners and Microsoft. I said, so what you're forcing us to do is that we're using our personal OneDrive. We're sending things in email. I mean, we're breaking things because in your effort to be secure, you're entering even more risk in. It's unrealistic to do that.
So do their job.
The rules, I mean, that's the key, is that you can't keep people from doing their jobs, getting their work done. You have to understand, and I think part of governance, and I've said this for decades, it's like part of it is where governance, what can't be automated, what's not out of the box, what you can't then go and automate, it's manual. That's where governance comes in. That's why you need to have transparency, say, not necessarily stop people from using that unauthorized third-party solution, which meets their exact need. Sometimes you go and you track those things down, you go have a conversation, and you find out it's like, hey, did you know what we already have that's supported does most of what you need? It does 80%, 70%. If that's not good enough, help me understand why. At least, we as a company, it's our IP. We need to have, you need to share with us your login for that, access to the data. So if something happened to you, we could get access to our IP. We can monitor that. But if you don't have the mechanisms, the feedback loops to be having those kinds of conversations, I would say the same thing every time. I think every episode I say this, like, people are like water running down a hill. You put a rock in front of them, the water goes around. People will find a way.
Yeah,
because the most important message is that people want their jobs to be done. So it's all about getting things done. And sometimes we also do the mistake, and then we evangelize and talk about, hey, the value and the new features in Copilot for PowerPoint and Copilot for Excel and Teams and OneDrive, SharePoint. But most of the people are just interested how they can get their jobs done easier. And I had a very good conversation with Ragnar at the MVP Summit, and she says that currently, in these days where we have so many crises and war and economical changes and challenges in the stock market, people have a kind of AI fatigue and AI cynicism. And when we want to offer our products and services, then we need to cope and handle this kind of mixture of fatigue and cynicism. And her approach is we need to talk more about getting things done, and less about features and technical fanciness about Copilot.
It's the outcome, right?
Yeah.
The focus should be on the outcome, the work to be done, not the technology. Isn't this basically like, this is what kind of happened in the SharePoint space? We all come from the SharePoint space. That was my original MVP, was SharePoint MVP. Alistair, I know, like, same with you. I know, Ragnar, you came in slightly behind.
I started
at
later,
Microsoft during that era. And so you came over more when it was shifting to Office 365 and Yammer acquisition, those kinds of pieces. But that's something that happened where, 15 years ago, when you were talking about collaboration, like all these things, it was centered around managing those servers that was running these environments. And so much of the discussion was around that side of it. Now that we're in the services world, where I know that there are still on-prem, a lot of on-prem, it's still actually growing. It not as fast, but it is still growing. And hybrid environments, we're not talking about that as much. There's still need and value out there, and folks, Microsoft is still supporting those hybrid and on-prem environments. But with so much of that, the discussion turned to then usage of the technology, of the apps, of the services themselves. So like, I don't care about keeping servers up and running. I trust that they are up and running most of the time with whatever cloud services are out there. And then I can focus on, here's what I'm actually doing, trying to use this technology for. And so I'm focusing on the business outcomes of this, the end result.
Alistair, I would like to hear your thoughts about the renaissance of on-premises, because I think on Sunday, a few days ago, I played around with Llama 4, and then I wanted to download a Llama 4 in LM Studio, because I just figured out that in Azure AI Foundry, Llama 4 would cost me $188 per hour, which are like, I don't know, 140,000 a month, and that's something what I cannot afford, unfortunately. So what I did is I just downloaded Llama 4 on Llama and LM Studio, because then I could run the latest model from Meta on my local laptop.
Yeah. Look, there's a couple of things, right? From an on-prem, where is on-prem today? A lot of customers are moving back to on-prem infrastructure-wise, because it does actually cost money to run stuff in Azure, AWS, or GCP, right? Google Cloud Platform. What we are seeing, so if you want to understand where Microsoft is with their support for on-prem, what did they launch? Windows Server 2025. Yeah. They fixed the identity platform, previously known as Azure, previously known as Active Directory. It's still called Active Directory. They fixed that in 2025. Great. Now, what's the support lifecycle of a server operating system? Anyone want to take a guess? 15 years.
Okay.
Huh.
Oh.
I didn't know
So
that.
they dropped Server 2025, which means 15 years from now is when the last service package is going to be released by Microsoft for Server 2025. So read between the lines. On-prem is alive and well, right? And Microsoft has finally fixed Active Directory, because it was bleeding through its eyeballs since Server 2003, right? Coming back to what Ragnar was saying around cost and running stuff like, going to huggingface.io, downloading a model, right? And then deploying it locally. So from an inference and tokenization perspective, the recommended infrastructure would be dual GPUs. So go get two 3050 GTXs, stick it in a machine. It's going to cost a bit of money. Otherwise, you're going to watch the words get written on the screen. So you could go download Llama, stick it in a container, put OpenWeb UI on top
I remember
of it.
the internet when it was like that. Every website was like that.
Correct. So
I don't want to go back to that. Yeah.
I've been costing infrastructure for a home lab because, shit, man, was it last year sometime? I wanted to show the kids, and I don't have teeny boppers. My youngest they'll be 20 weekend, right? They'll be 20, right? They're going to cybersecurity. So, deploying Llama inside of a Docker container and then sticking OpenWeb UI on top of it. I mean, there's pre-baked install guides. Putting it onto a 1060 GTX, which is literally over there. Reasonable response. But the recommended approach here would be dual GPUs, 3050 GTXs. They're reasonably cheap. They're like $200-$300. Yeah, $250. Buy two, stick it in a machine that'll handle both. And then you'd get that, ChatGPT type response as long as you offload any sort of compute to GPUs, and there's a plugin for it when you look at Llama and OpenWeb UI, so that you offload your tokenization and your inferences to your GPUs, and then you're good, right? Otherwise, going to the cloud. I use Perplexity, it's great, but I am going to build a home lab so that I don't have to, so I can do heavy lifting when I want to do some cool AI stuff. And also model context protocol, building agents, so using a platform like N8N to build these agents.
MCP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where a lot of organizations are releasing MCPs. It's just a service bus as part of the connector, so that when you return the results, you can format that. It's
we have to talk like 5 minutes about MCP, because this morning I was just playing around and use Claude AI desktop, and I was connecting it with 11 Labs. So I was prompting, hey, please use this text, and then use my voice from 11 Labs. And then Claude was using an MCP server from 11 Labs, using the text, using my voice, and then Claude was offering me an MP3 file of my own voice.
Yeah.
So it just took like 5 minutes to build everything, this whole MCP infrastructure. And now I'm currently trying to find out how I can do the same with Copilot Studio.
You can't currently. There is no MCP framework for Studio. It's coming, from what I understand. And that's not, it wasn't announced at the MVP Summit, so I'm not under NDA. But, just to qualify that before, my new CPM watches this video and says, hey, how do you know about that? I don't. I'm making a prediction, right? MCP is the latest hot shit inside of AI, outside of the wrapper
stack. It is crazy,
It's a wrapper for multiple language models on the back end. And when you look at venture capital orgs today, they're spending a lot of money on wrapper companies. N8N, orchestration layer for MCPs, and then, the Perplexities and everyone else. You've just said now, what is that, 11 Labs?
11 Labs, just released it yesterday,
Yeah. So they launched their MCP, which is just more intelligence in that connector into the platform, so that it can format your data better and present it either to another agent to do things with. It's like an enterprise service bus. It's exactly the same things like TIBCO and WebSphere and all of those, where it's literally an interpreter for the information you're sending across, so that it can connect to another source and bring it back in a formatted way. And that's what MCPs are.
I'm sorry, but I have to. So what MCP, what's the acronym stand for?
Model Context Protocol.
So is anybody else concerned that they went with that acronym? Anybody that's older that was really into the Tron movies?
Well, Tron Ares is
Easter egg. Right? Easter egg.
Master Control Program took over, Alistair. Like
it's making a comeback this year, right? The new Tron Ares trailer aired over the weekend, right? Very excited.
It's fine, Christian. It's fine.
It's going to be okay. All right.
I can't wait to have a full show of governance for MCP servers.
And that's going to come, right?
That's the latest hottest.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just the ChatGPT, the generative AI stuff that we govern. There's no governance for agents that you deploy.
Right.
If you create an agent in Copilot Studio and you connect it to knowledge sources and you build actions and triggers, and I'm not even talking about the authentication layer when it comes to identity security, right? That's a separate conversation, right? Because that's what's being compromised today in the security world, right? But yes, and if you look at the rate of change, Microsoft is throwing a lot of money and a lot of people. I mean, it took them 2 months to release DSPM, right? 2 months from private beta until they released it, fully packaged, and the shit works, right? It literally works. It's not like in the old days.
Yeah.
You know, you get information barriers launched, right? And then they say V1, they give you no UI. Then they present it at Ignite 2017, and then you get the interface in 2019. None of that shit's happening, right? That shit gets launched, it gets tested, and it physically works. Not like when they launched T2, right?
Yeah.
It
is. That's all. I mean, that aspect of it, again, that was mentioned during Summit. Again and again, people saying like the documentation's getting better. The how secure the releases are. I mean, it is improving across the board, but certainly around the AI stuff, it's coming out. It's solid. It's just happening so fast.
Look,
and the great thing is please, Lister.
When you can literally do what you just said, Buckley, because live long and prosper, right? It's where you can say, "Computer, go do stuff for me." That is when I tap out, say, "Thank you very much. I've seen it all. I no longer have to experience life," and we're not far away. So use the voice on your phone. I literally switched it on for my family last night, and I didn't like the accent, so I said, "Use the South African accent." Instantaneously, it had all my colloquialisms, and it responded. And everyone's sitting at the table going, "What?"
Yeah,
right.
I've got a good friend who's like doing training. I mean, there's the stuff that's out there too. People, I mean, so much just going and watching videos, but seeing the stuff that's out there in production being used. Like a friend who's a trainer who goes in and does the recordings once, doesn't have to send out for a service for translation services, instantly goes in 15 different languages. And the AI, it's not perfect, but it does look at the structure of sentences and things of the content and does that. But then also in the video content, the AI then morphs to make the mouth of the original video looks like you're speaking those other 15 languages. It's incredible what's coming out there. I mean, when used for good, I know that there's evil usage out there as well. There's crazy stuff, but it's incredible the speed at which and keeping up. And I know, and there's just a time, we're kind of at time here, but anything like, where would you point people, Alistair, when you have these conversations, when people are governance minded, where should they go take a look at or even experiment today?
It's a great question. From a governance committee, if someone lives in the governance world, so you've got a governance risk and compliance team inside of your organization, and most organizations don't have that. It's either legal, HR, and communications, or it's one person doing all three jobs, right? If they've got access to the Purview portal, literally just go there and look at DSPM for AI. Click on the Learn More tags, or ask Perplexity or ChatGPT or anything to describe, literally, write this prompt. I'm a data security consultant working with Microsoft Purview. I'm about to join a podcast as an expert guest. The title of the podcast is called Using AI to Enhance Oversight and Streamline Compliance. Please list 10 things I can talk about on the show. Focus these things on data security posture management for AI and Microsoft Purview. Write that. Put it in Perplexity, right? Yeah. What's nice about that is that it's going to come back with 10 things, and it's going to have citations that you can click on to read more about it. I did not use any of that because we just, squirreled and talked about everything else. But it's a great starter, right? Where you've got citations, 2 blog posts and articles, and you can start learning. It gave me an overview of DSPM for AI. It explains that. It talks about real-time data classification, mitigating risk, adaptive protection, insights and analytics, compliance management. Start there. Use the GPT that you have access to and ask the GPT about data security posture management for AI in Microsoft Purview, and it will actually give you the information you need to get started. Even before you click buttons inside of the portal, at least get AI to explain to you what AI is inside of Microsoft 365.
Use the tools.
Yeah. All of us we're all going to the direction of the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. I mean, that's one of those things where I think there's going to be more certifications. There needs to be something that's more at like the end user, power user level in that area, where you don't have to go down that path all the way, but there's enough to know how to safely navigate in this world. I think there's tremendous opportunity for MVPs, for experts out there to create that kind of content as well. Right. Well, thank you, Alistair. Thank you for joining the show and this month. And this is great. This is just the spark from a conversation, a side conversation. We're like, hey, we need to get you on the show and let's cover this topic. I know there's a lot more. We'll have to have you back later this year with when things change.
It's a never-ending topic.
Right. Yeah. So we'll definitely need to have you back.
If you ever want to talk about identity security and application security, posture management inside of Entra ID, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Been spending a lot of time talking two topics like zero trust. I mean, we helped Microsoft build the zero trust adoption framework. When I was with Nick at NB Consult, I did the architecture for it. And we wrote to 5 business scenarios. So if you do want to talk, my worry is I don't care about the AI stuff. I care about identity security because that's what's getting hacked.
Yeah.
Nobody's hacking your firewall. Nobody is hacking your firewall. They're coming through identity or privileged escalation inside of service accounts and workload identities inside of your.
Yeah.
That's my worry.
That is
quantum
another
computing.
The vulnerability.
That is a never-ending story.
I would like to talk
as well.
also about access reviews. That's an important part in Entra ID, identity governance, access reviews, and also learn here from you about the best practices.
Yeah, we might have to do that and just line it up, get it on the calendar for a couple months down the road when we have the spot open.
Stick it in my calendar, I'll show up.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joy, Ragnar, Alistair. I got to head to the airport. So, everybody, thank you.
Safe travels.
We'll see you next time. We'll be back next month, another topic. So keep watching the socials. You'll find us.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.